When you look around you, what do you see? We see a space of infinite possibilities. We believe that creating our own space is the basis for human relations, a space to know ourselves and to connect with our surroundings. This thought not only inspires all our creations, but goes beyond our brand. It's an attitude towards life. That's why we want to share our dreams, to serve as an inspiration. With an innovative and sustainable spirit, we are driven by helping people create the best possible spaces, to make the environment around us an evocative place where we can enjoy extraordinary experiences, combining design and functionality. We believe the world would be a better place if we keep in mind that everything we do, invent, and create is in order to live better. Because the best thing about creating something is living it. Neolith, touch, feel, live.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to SHIFT 2022. This afternoon on day 2, we have 2 speakers. The first is Liu Yichun from Shanghai, and the second is James Shen. Let me do an introduction of our first speaker, Liu Yichun, and he will be joining us on Zoom in a short while. Liu Yichun established Atelier Deshaus together with Chen Yifeng and Zhuang Shen in 2001. Liu has participated in a variety of major international architecture and art exhibitions in more than 15 countries and regions around the world, and the works have been widely published on professional journals across more than 26 countries. He had also held lectures at many prestigious universities, including the Harvard Graduate School of Design, the University of Hong Kong, Tongji University, Southeast University, and an Architectural Institute of France, and so on. His works have won a number of architectural awards. His representative work, Long Museum West Bund, has been awarded 2014 AR Awards for Emerging Architecture by Architectural Review, the Golden Prize of Architecture Creation Awards of ASC for Public Architecture 2016, Honor Award Best in Show for Architecture 2019 by AIA China, and has won the Gold Winner Public Amenity Social and Cultural Buildings in Arcasia Awards for Architecture 2020. His recent work include a series of waterfront renovation projects along the Huangpu River in Shanghai, such as the Long Museum West Bund, Shanghai Modern Art Museum and its walkways, renovation of 80,000-ton silos on Minxing Wharf, West Bund Art Center, the Riverside Passage, and others including the Qintai Art Museum in Wuhan and Taizhou Contemporary Art Museum. Without further ado, can we have Yichun on the screen, please? Hello, Mr. Yichun. Can you see us, the audience?
Yes.
For the audience, can we give a big wave and a big round of applause for Liu Yichun?
Thank you.
Thank you. Good to have you with us. So I'll pass over the screen to you, and you may start your presentation.
Okay, so I will share the screen now.
Yes, sure.
Okay. Okay, let's begin. Good afternoon, everyone. Here I will present several industrial regeneration projects along the Huangpu River in Shanghai, which are designed by our office, Atelier Deshaus, in recent years. Some of them are rather tall industrial space and are clearly still usable, and some are industrial constructions or some unimportant walls or structural frames. How to involve them into the renovated urban environment along the Huangpu River and of Shanghai. This is an issue that we are often thinking about and practicing on in recent years. Shanghai is one of the largest mega cities in China, located where the Yangtze River meets in the East Sea. This area, named as the Yangtze River Delta Zone, is the most dense part of water network in China. Shanghai is located on the flat plain of the Yangtze River Delta. Huangpu River is its core urban river, just like the Thames of London and the Seine of Paris. On the left side of Huangpu River is the central area of Shanghai, and on the right is Pudong district. Along the Huangpu River, you will see different appearance of the city because of different periods of urban development. For a long time, Huangpu River used to be the most important shipping channel of Shanghai. But after the 2010 Shanghai Expo, some of the factories, wharves, and warehouses moved to the further part of the city. Huangpu River gradually turned from a riverfront of production to a riverfront of urban life. This part along the west side and south part of the river is now called Westbound. It is an example of how Shanghai pushed forward the urban regeneration process by improving urban spatial qualities with the intervention of art and cultural space. This image shows the Xuhui riverfront and Pudong Riverside Cross before the 2010 Shanghai Expo. The Expo pavilions were still under construction, and up close is the former Beipiao Co-Wharf, where the Long Museum Westbound now lies. This is the Long Museum Westbound we began to work on since the end of 2011. Now it has become a public space and a common landscape of the city. When we started this project, a two-story underground car park surrounding the coal uploading bridge was already built 2 years ago. However, this coal hopper uploading bridge remained in the middle of the site. It is around 100 meters long and 8 meters wide. This is the plan and section of the former design for the existing basement. On the right is how it would have looked like. It was planned to be a tourist service center, and the part above ground was not built. We can see that the underground structural plan is standardized 8.4 times 8.4 meters column grid. It was designed for the economy of car parking. These most regions in China require the design to be strictly earthquake proofed. Normally, whatever the function is above ground, the basement always takes up most of the architecture footprint. The underground structure would simply extend upwards. The column would be wrapped in the division walls or exposed in the space, with no direct relation to the specific environment or functions, and just support the floor plats of the building to provide usable space. On the opposite, here we see this hopper for coal loading, even though it has lost its function of transporting coals. We can still read from its structure to see the body of the trains and how the coal was transported there. We can see its deeper connection with the Huang River. It shows a simple but strong will using its making. The meaning of the structure is certainly suspended as the function is removed. This somehow represents the destiny of an architecture in the future. If a city is willing to preserve these structures without the function, it means that architecture has to prove a value beyond its use. But it starts exactly from function and purpose always. This should be telling us only if the structure of the architecture can also carry a purpose, such as the purpose for use, it can retain more lasting historic values. In fact, when we see the trace of history again in the new architecture, we now know that it's really a common landscape, actually. We had to design an art museum on such a site. Traditional art museums originate from places and villas, and this layout of going from room to room has always been a standard pattern for museums. I came to realize that paintings and artworks are always attached to the walls, but not the rooms. It is possible to have a more flexible layout so we come up with a space with independent walls where people can roam around to see the exhibitions. These independent walls are built upon the standard 8.4 times 8.4 meters column grid of the existing basement for economy car parking. Thus, an art museum has adapted its function to its structure through arranged the walls and has adapted to the existing column grid system too. Sure enough, the special thing is it is not just a simple and vertical wall, but a wall structure that has combined the covering roof. In fact, the walls are each made of two pieces of walls. They clamp the oak frame structure, grow upwards, and expand into individual what we called vault umbrella structures. They group with one another till they cover all the exhibition space. The void in between the walls and the pinches is for mechanical equipment. Thus, as we figure out the adaptation of structure and function, we also deal with the mechanical system, and together they solve the spatial issue. The spatial issue also includes the gaps to allow skylight in, and we make each vault umbrella unit independent as a complete structure and detached from one another. This is how a functional concern also works out for the atmosphere. Before an architecture goes into actual use, I think we can also say this is a kind of landscape. In this model, we can see the relationship between the new and the old structure. The new walls are based on the original column grids, but form a rather free exhibition space. Sure, there are many ways to combine the walls. Finally, we decided on a layout with diverse spaces that are symmetrical, rotational or diagonal. The fluidity of a space is important. And it is the simplicity of this very structure resulting from various intentions that builds up an analogy with the existing coal hoppers on the site. And exactly because of such analog, a common landscape is formed between the new and the old, or with both of them. When we describe the notion of covering as tree and umbrella, we are actually mentioning human body. This is a metaphor based on the perception of our body. From this point of view, there is not much difference between Chinese traditional wooden architecture and this concrete architecture. This is when I was most delighted. Back to that summer when I was working in this temple from Tang Dynasty, I immediately thought of the just finished Law Museum. The atmosphere was quite the same. I believe it must be something deep down inside that makes us resonate beyond the form. A photographer from Switzerland, Walter Mayer, he came to the Law Museum in 2012. He asked me for a keyword for this space when he has taken the photo during his the photo shooting. I didn't think for a second. I just said ruins. He demanded to turn off all the artificial lighting and took this photo. At this moment, I realized that the feeling that reached me directly from the structural space in the hall from the Tang Dynasty has become a common landscape. I believe years later, people from the future will also experience here a power that goes through time. This is we just call it in architecture or philosophy a word, road metaphor. Then this structure form or this spatial form has indeed achieved a sense of common with the co-hopper on the side. Surely, as an art museum, apart from building as an analogy with the existing hoppers through its functions and spatial forms, on this site at the riverfront, there is also a relation between this industrial remain and the river. This former a productive spatial relation has become an urban spatial relation under daily activities. The co-harbor uploading bridge guides the way from the city towards the waterfront public space. The new structure of the museum, along with the existing co-harbor uploading bridge, forms the public space leading from the city to the riverfront. This public corridor also divides the museum in two parts. On the left is the main building of the art museum. On the right is the temporal art gallery, the auditorium, the cafe, and art shops, and so on. The main entrance of the art museum is also in the middle of this spatial axis, as well as the public stairs that leads to the terrace on the second floor, the restaurant and the auditorium on the second floor. This is a public alley towards the river. Now here is a cafe, and the red bridge connects the coal bridge platform with the upper courtyards. The public terrace on the this is the undercoat hoppers. People like to play under the coal hopper bridge, and On the facade of the museum, we can clearly see the structural and spatial composition of the architecture. And the interior exhibition space is also made by the concrete structure unit. In this space, numerous exhibitions took place here. Every exhibition seemed to be tired. They all reacted to the space, each in their own way, and so each one of them is unique, even though the space is so strong and remains the same. People still remember also almost all the exhibitions. These photos show the activities of people inside and outside the building. People like to gather here, do some jogging, walk the dog, play the skateboard, and so on. Every year during the season of cherry blossom, this place is even more packed. It has become one of the most important art and cultural public space of Shanghai. This is another project in Shanghai Modern Art Museum at Eastbourne, just opposite to the Westbourne. It's also along the Pomp River. It has a museum and additional walkway. It was also a coal wharf, almost demolished completely. Under our suggestions, the client agreed to retain this original industrial structure. By the time, the roof and the part of the walls has been removed already. It had to be pulled down because the existing structure could not meet the functional need for the new building, and the client never thought that the enclosed hoppers could become an exhibition space. We applied a huge roof truss on top to hang the new structure below. It formed the cantilevered additional surrounding space that we can prevent the destruction of the cantilevered structure if it has been inserted into the existing space. The existing structure is in red, surrounded by the suspended structures as increased exhibition space. In this way, the coal bunker on the site were as if a natural thing that cannot be separated from the wall. It was like a tree grown from the earth and was suddenly wrapped in a curtain way. The building has a brand new appearance, apart from the steel stairway on the left. We can barely find the old building from the outside. But this is not just simply wrapping it up. It also carries the spatial functions inside and outside. Besides providing exhibition space on the inside, this suspended structure also adds shared exterior space to the building. The platform and the corridors bring up a sense of publicity and landscape, which the former enclosed industrial buildings did not have. As far you can see the Shanghai Tower, the tallest high-rise in China. That's the Lujiazui district of Pudong. Whether the museum is open or not, people are able to walk by the building from one side to the other. When lights are on, we can see the old structure in the building. Just then, when there is a ship passing by, we can still remember the connection between the coal bunkers and the river. This belongs to the past in our memory as a productive landscape. Together with the new landscape of cultural activities, they build up the urbanity in this post-industrial era. A brand new architecture has an old coal hopper as its core, covering the entrance hall of the building. The contrast between inside and outside is also unique to this architecture. Exhibitions can be held in between and even inside the coal hoppers. These are the new stairs we put in. It also brings new energy into the space. To the north of the museum are cafes and art shops transformed from the original coal channels. It is also a public park. These are the old coal channels. We attached a new and light steel structure onto the old frame structure, both stressing the existence of old and forming a new entity. One thing to stress upon, normally, it is an easy way to add secondary beams vertical to the existing beams on the parallel frames. But such a structure would be too reasonable and lose its sense of time. So we think it through and apply a string beam structure for the steel structure beams parallel to the existing frame. It seems like the structure is somehow floating in the air, but seeks to stress and distinguish the existing frame beams. This image shows how to attach the new structure onto the old trusses. The glass boxes suspended from the new steel string beams are flexible retail spaces. The new structure seems to be just suspended there, floating there. The existing structure seems just like it right here as natural. On the rooftop is an elevated walkway. The remaining truss beams for coal loading also became the flower beds for planting. A newly built architecture seems like it has been there for a long time. You will see from this picture. It's not only a part of an art museum, but rather a part of the city. This is also a renovation project on the east side of the Huangpu River. It's known as the 80,000-ton silos for the grain storage, which was the largest one in Asia. It's also called Mingshen Valve. This is the picture before renewal. In 2017, the building was selected to serve as the main pavilion for Shanghai Urban Spatial Art Season, with a total height of 48 meters high. The top and the bottom floors of the silos and all floors of service building were to be used for the exhibition. Thus, it has become the main issue to complete an entire visit circulation. It is also at the core of the design to open up the enclosed silos as a cultural space. But meanwhile, preserving the existing architectural features and its spatial characters are the preconditions. Eventually, we attached an elevator covered with glass onto the building, both completing the circulation and building up the publicity between the silos and the Huangpu River. Visitors can appreciate the view from different heights throughout the lifting process. We also designed an auto walkway leading to the second floor directly from the riverside, but unfortunately, this part has not been realized yet. This sloped walkway can lead visitors from the riverfront directly to the top of the building. The cantilevered glass escalator makes the warehouse vibrant again. This became a new spot to watch a riverside sunset. This is the exhibition hall on the ground floor, just the original space. And one silo was open as a spiral sloped space to enter the top floor hall. The renovation only took 5 months, as escalator is the only visible change from the outside, but it gives new amenity to the former silos. The existing building is also protected to the most. This also seems to turn the existing building into a landscape. This landscape is not newly created. It is really there. It is already there. It slowly enters the daily life of the city from a sense of distance and strangeness of an industrial element. It becomes a common landscape. Even it's a building, yeah. In 2014, following the completion of the Long Museum, Westbound, the government came to realize the influence of art on the urban development. With joint efforts from our office and the government, we gradually formed the Westbound Art and Design Village based on the Westbound Art Center. It used to be the repair garage of the Shanghai Aircraft Manufacturing Factory. This area is also where China's first airport was located. It's called the Longhua Airport. The huge repair warehouse was also almost pulled down because it was sitting on a newly planned road. Eventually, 4 spans on the west side were removed. The government wanted to remove the warehouse mainly because they did not know what to do with it. Removing the building and sell the land can be the easily thing to do. Because of the Long Museum, the government saw the potential of art, so holding an art fair became the final choice of this space. This is an oil painting of the east facade of the warehouse made by the artist Zhou Tianhai, who is also the principal curator of the Westbound Art Fair. The renovated warehouse opened up part of its elevation to the city, and the interior space were mostly preserved. This is during the art fair photo. We add a partial first floor and a slope and wide stairs. And we try to enrich the uses and visualize the space. The sunset can be seen inside the hall. This scape of sunset has also become a beautiful landscape. It is decided by the orientation of the building and its once isolated location. Now 8 years has passed. The emerging high-rise nearly has covered up the scape. We can only catch a sight of it as at a certain moment through a certain gap. This is our office studio. Following the completion of the Long Museum, we also moved our office to the West Bank. We became closely related to the urban regeneration of this area. This place used to be the repairing zone of the Shanghai aircraft manufacturing. A main warehouse is transformed into the Westbound Art Center. Surrounding it, some temporary artist and architecture studios are also built, and some art galleries too. Our office is among them. We do this to better enrich the daily art atmosphere in the surrounding areas of the area, so that it is an art community, but not just a place for events. The site of our office is the parking space on the former aircraft factory. We wanted to reduce the cost by using the existing concrete ground of the parking lot as the building foundation. The 2 trees at the front would be enclosed into the courtyard. Building directly upon the parking lot concrete ground, instead of building a new foundation, leads the middle of the window, leads to the decision of applying brick walls structure on the ground level so as to distribute the load transmission, and so on. The ground floor is mainly small functional space. On the second floor is a large space with light steel structure. It's our main workspace. This is the workspace on the second floor. One special thing, we put the main structural column at the middle of the window, so that the columns and the window frames are merged together, and the steel column can get rid of the cold bridge effort with the heat isolating window frames, so that the walls of the upper floor don't have to be too thick. The structure is also clearly presented in the space on the upper floor. The supporting roof truss is an important element for the spatial atmosphere. It is also related to the industrial history of this space, but the structure is not completely exposed. A section of the ceiling makes it bright and comfortable. In this project, when I think of the concrete vault umbrella structures in the Long Museum, I just realized maybe structures is also a carrier of various significance. If we do not see it only as an idea of dynamics or spaces, we can completely allow structure to become a creator for landscape, for the atmosphere. I made up a word for this possibility. I call it a structurescape. The elevation of the building honestly reflected the relating structure forms. The skylight of the ground level meeting room and office let the trees become a part of the shelter for the space. The sunken part of the rooftop terrace guides the rainwater to where the trees are. This is a tea house in the same art village just near our office. It is located in a 110 square meter courtyard with a tall paulownia tree. The yard is tiny, especially compared to this tree. The tea house chose to sit in the tree side so as to make space for the yard and make the tree seems not too big in the yard. Another benefit is that the tea house would appear to be really small. The tea house uses really thin steel structures with all columns and beams are at about only 6 centimeters wide compared to the tree trunk of 90 centimeters wide. The columns and beams of these wides barely count anymore. Usually in our architecture of wooden structure, the size of the beam and the columns are always the size of the tree trunks. In order to reduce the footprint of the tea house as much as possible, we also turn the interior seats into part of the architectural structure and elevations. The red and yellow columns are lateral resisting structures. The blue ones are set as vertical load transition columns for the cantilever parts. This is a structure system with certain dynamic load transmission. We can see on the left the envelope structure of the building is cantilever layers after layer. Also because the tea house is reduced as at its lower part, in reverse, we would hope to rather expand the upper part so that it would not feel too packed in the inside. Our demand for space on our upper part is much larger than that on our lower part. And as for the yard, the house should take up as little space as possible. So on the envelope of this building, we can see the seat height at 45 centimeters, a human standing height as 1.8 meters, and a roofed height at 2.5 meters. Architecture is always a metaphor of the human scale. Meanwhile, architecture or furniture, it is also blurred due to the scale of the structural elements. Structure is both of architecture and of furniture. In this way, a direct connection is created between our body and actual architectural structure. The scene still also seem to go beyond this small building in its walls into a wider domain. They share an industrial but unfamiliar landscape with the nearby warehouses and the office of this house. The structural body shows the intentions of support the function. They became components with multiple meanings. Because of the close distance and the dim light enclosed by the backyard, the interior actually feels like it's expanded through the glass all the way to the wall. This is some detailed photos. This is the roof and the trunk of the existing tree on site. This top view seems like the architectural covered almost as much as the yard is left within. But on the ground, the yard does not feel smaller than when there was no architecture. It actually feels bigger since the space is further layered. This is the Riverside Passage designed in 2018. It's also along the Huangpu River. The site used to be a gas factory wharf, also for coal transporting. There was a 90-meter long and 4-meter high concrete wall and some wild trees nearby. Seen from the city roads, the river is behind it. The high-rise in Pudong across the river became the background for the wildness. And it is the same city view behind us. So this piece of wild field seems like a special place of nature in the city, a kind of garden at the waterfront is always there. It's already there. The wall was built to prevent the coal from falling into the river. Some trees are growing from within the gap between the wharf and the flood control wall. It gives a sense of wildness. During the rapid urbanization process in the past decades, Chinese cities has tended to adopt a tabula rasa strategy of massive demolition and construction, thus creating a discontinuity in both structural and community sense. Even in the process of transporting the formerly industrial sites along the Huangpu River into open public space, foreign vegetation and new buildings often have completely changed their original atmosphere and ecological environment despite the preservation of certain industrial structures. So we hope to preserve the conditions of the ruins and trees in the wild as much as possible, but we also hope to transform them into an acceptable landscape. We named this place Bianyuan in Chinese. It also means a place of a little bit far away or a fringe walkaway. It got the name of Riverside Passage from a conversation I had there with Professor Yehuda Safran, who was from New York Columbia University. He asked me how we should define the space with a certain type. Is it a balcony? Is it a passage? A pavilion? Maybe Riverside Passage is the conclusion. Yeah, we came up with right there. But now if you ask me, I might want to call it edge of garden. There were actually two walls on the wall. One of them has been broken down and left in the gap. As the wall was abandoned later, the place turned into ruins left behind by the city. We hope to transform the place into a new urban space with its current atmosphere through a modest design. We applied a single pitched roof onto the wall and clearly defined the space on both sides. On one side is lowered corridor related to small-scale garden space in the gap. The other is a lifted platform reacting to the large-scale riverscape. This is exploded astronomic drawings. We can see the old concrete wall is treated as a part of the original ground. It serves as the foundation for the new structure. This wall was used to bear the horizontal force of the coal piles. After the coal wall loses its function, it stands alone on itself, becomes a ruin, now it bears with the forces again due to the cantilevered passage and now roof attached upon it. During the discussion of the structural rationality of the eave dips, we realized that the wall across this single-pitched steel roof has a delicate structural force on the roof. Its impact on wind control makes this wall not just for spatial enclosure. The notion of the flat control wall and the pitched roof as one structure might only be perceived on the intellectual level, but I believe that the consciousness of the body can sense more internal relevance. The new roof changed the rule of the wall and the spaces as well, but the features and atmosphere of the original place are still here. The original dock has been partially polished and transformed into a roller skating rink. These remnants of the site's industrial past are not treated as a visual spectacular that has lost their use, but regarded as part of the new memory of the place through their structural and spatial rule. This is the skating rink in a raining day dusk. This is a pavilion, also a balcony, and also a corridor. This is a place where one can feel free to stay or passing by. This is the entering slope and the pavilion facing the river. The side facing the garden brings in a strong architectural feature due to this single pitched roof. It carries with the trace of urban infrastructures in a metropolis. It becomes a place of landscape. You will find a duration of time here. In fact, it is hard to keep in such a state of wildness in Shanghai so as to prove its once a remote being in the city. The government always wanted to be modern and beautiful and everywhere. A thing like this is usually described as bleak. Fortunately, biologists found a kind of insect, a moose here that has disappeared in other places along the Huang River, and this beauty of wildness goes to survive finally. The ruins of architecture replace the artificial mountains in a traditional Chinese garden. The thin roof plat of steel turns an industrial wall into a garden wall. You can see the garden in the gap, the scape of the wildness, and the scape of ruins. The water here may rise and fall twice in a day. The concrete blocks and industrial ruins in the gap of the dock and the shore, washed by the tide, are just like the Taihu stone in Chinese gardens. They are no longer cold technical objects, but are attached with emotional and cultural meanings. With this regard, we consider this project as a continuation of the cultural spirit and traditional Chinese gardens, as well as spatial expansion. Here, the garden is no longer a private aesthetic objects enclosed by walls, but a wall separating two sides of the different scales to the left and right. The narrow ruin-like garden and the open view of the Huangpu River. The garden is transformed into a communal space, which is precisely what is lacking in the congested neighborhood. It brings a sense of familiarity and a sense of time for the residents of the surrounding community, including those we used to work here. The stress on continuation rather than start from scratch values what is really already there through preserving the wall and the ruined landscape. The ecosystem is also preserved. This place becomes a vivid public space for daily activities. Industrialization is Shanghai's most significant contribution to China's modernization process, and the factories and the warehouses lining along the Huang River are the physical remnants of this contribution, while these modest industrial structures were supposed to transcend regionality with their pragmatic purpose. They nevertheless constitute a kind of Shanghainese, as industrial civilization is one of the greatest achievements of modern Shanghai. Compared to other Chinese cities, its modernization and internationalization has permeated deeply into its urban space, which is also the city defining characteristic. From this perspective, the Huang River is more than a river in the geographical sense. The industrial activities along it have rewritten its neutral properties. The small dock that once belonged to the gas factory is a small piece of evidence of this rewriting process. Today, the transformation from urban infrastructure to a public waterfront space where everyday life happens is the result of a combination of spatial and temporal continuity. In the urban development process of Shanghai, a mega city where 25 million people live and work, this transformation is small in scale yet profound and far-reaching in meaning. It is in the form of architecture and garden that we hope to make this change as a common landscape, particularly sensible by the people and the city. I would like to finish with this image. This is the soundscape built by staff on an archaeological site in Zhengding, Hebei, in North China. We can see that it built a space and a place with very simple support and pooling. It even indicates a construction system. This is a topic I'm very interested in. The tree umbrella at the archaeological site is still a tree, which is, say, part of the landscape. Likewise, the roof remains as an artifact of a textile craft. They're together, but not only unified, but they are events that have unfolded in a landscape or artisans' workshops. That's not gone, but somehow they are almost together. This reminds me of the architecture ruins in this project that I just mentioned. The ruins of the architecture stand on the ground after the functions are removed. They seem to have become a part of the landscape. The new structure attached one onto them seem to be both separate from and integrated with the scape. The projects I mentioned today seem to be about the transformation and renovation of industrial buildings, but there is a hidden clue which is more important to me. It is the poetic composition or decomposition of building system. That is also the creation towards a common landscape. The building system originates in a region and is connected to this region as it matures, but has been deeply impacted by the influence of modern technology. I believe regarding the creation of publicness in architecture and place, the common landscape achieved through such changes is absolutely significant. And last week, I will share a video of these two projects at the end of the presentation.
there's a slight technical error. All right, thank you, Mr. Yichun. A big round of applause to Mr. Liu Yichun. Thank you very much, and we hope to see you next time in Kuala Lumpur.
Okay, see you next time.
Thank you, and wave a goodbye to him.
Bye-bye.
See you next time. Bye. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we will now proceed to a short afternoon tea break. It's already 10 to 4 now, so if we could all come back after tea break to the plenary hall at 4:20, 20 past 4 p.m. And we'll see you in a while.